Hey, well, it's time to start. So welcome everyone. I'm really glad you're here. My name is Julie Stigmeyer and I work with the School of Education in particular in providing writing support. Um, Landon, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do?
Of course, happy to. Hello, everyone. My name is Landon Myers, and I work with Julie in the Graduate Resource Center here at Concordia. So I am a resource for anything that you might need outside of the realm of writing, academic support, social emotional help, connecting with different resources, financial aid, medical health, wellness, all those kinds of things. So my hope is to just, be a resource for you and anything that you might need while you're here at Concordia. So if you need anything, just shoot me an email or let Julie know and we can get in contact.
Thanks, Landon. He's helping with monitoring the chat and will help us with our raffle at the end. Um, And the director of our library is also here. Regina, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. If we haven't met yet, I am the director of library here at Concordia. I am housed at the Turtle Rock campus, but you can reach out anytime, instant message, uh, call, email. And I'm here to help you with your research skills and hacks, we'll say.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, Regina's going to share a little bit later about some ways to organize research. Um, but let's just start right now with a poll. So if you wouldn't mind participating in this poll, that'd be great. Welcome to those who just came in. We're just doing a poll right now. Just trying to learn a little bit more about your background and comfort with these different terms. All right, so we're just doing a poll right now. Hopefully those who came in after I launched it can still see the poll. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe just a minute or two more. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end it and see how we answered. So can you see the results? Yeah. Okay, thanks. So it looks like most of us are in Pacific time. Then I asked a couple of questions about paraphrasing, summarizing, and synthesizing. So first question was, I am confident with paraphrasing to restate what researchers have found in their studies. So most of you said two, so somewhat confident. Um, Summarizing, it looks like more people are confident with that. And then the last one, synthesizing research, looks like about half are looks like we need to learn a little bit more there. So, okay, thank you so much for participating in that. So it's great to see you all. I love to see our returning guests. So happy to have you all here. We're going to get started with our presentation. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you can see my slides, correct?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have to move you all over so I can view. Okay, so let's just begin with a quick word of prayer before we start. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for gathering us here together on this call to continue to learn more about academic writing and ways that we can increase our critical thinking skills and work together in our writing community. Thank you for Landon and Regina who are helping to present today. And I thank you for all of these students and the gifts they bring, not only to their own students, but also to our meeting together tonight. Please be with us as we learn and grow. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Okay, so here's our agenda. We've done the first one, and now we're going to get into the synthesis presentation, and then Regina will share information with us about how to organize research. So if you came in a little bit late, Regina is the director of Concordia's library, and Landon is one of our success coaches. So I'm grateful they could join. So in addition to what we'll be sharing tonight, I wanted to give you a couple of QR codes here where you can learn, you can get some more resources. I'll include these. They are included in a resource document I've already created, and I'll share with you after our workshop. But just in case you wanted to look at something, have it on your phone sooner. The student spotlight video, I interviewed a student just a couple weeks ago, and she shared a lot of information about how she wrote her very successful literature review when she came up to writing blocks, or how she organized her research. So that's really helpful. She's in the EDD program. And then the QR code on the right is similar to this presentation on synthesis, but just a little more streamlined. So the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is what synthesizing means. And to get there, I remember when I first learned about literature reviews, my background was in humanities, was in creative writing and literature. So I didn't really come across a lit review until about, I don't know, 8 or so years ago. And when I was trying to figure out what this was, these were some of the terms that confused me. And you may know all of this already, but I just thought I'd mention it. So the term literature just refers to the research on a topic. I'd always applied that to, Victor Hugo or Shakespeare. So that's the term we use in this field as well. A literature review is a specific type of writing that describes research, and this is usually chapter 2, actually in both the MA, ED capstones as well as in dissertations. And then I don't know a lot about other specific kinds of lit reviews like meta-analyses, but the typical narrative review that I see is what we're going to talk about tonight. So this is a lit review written in descriptive story-like format that summarizes and synthesizes previous research without using a strict systematic or statistical method. And the reason I included this term is because sometimes I'll hear a professor talking about the student narrating the story or using their dissertation as a narrative. And to me, again, that was like coming from my literature background, I didn't quite get it. But I think it's just the idea that it's descriptive, it's telling the story of what the research says. And when it's in the context of a larger study, then it's helping to place the new research being done within that older research. So you already know these terms. Paraphrasing, we'll just talk about these skills a little. It restates another's idea in your own words. And so then you can get to these other writing skills of summarizing and synthesizing. And so you have used summaries probably your whole school life. I remember probably since fourth grade, writing book reports. So summary is usually fairly familiar. Paraphrasing, which often refers to restating someone's words in a one-to-one sort of context. So if you have one sentence or 2 or 3 sentences as a paraphrase, that might be about the same length in your own words. Summarizing takes a bigger section and makes it small. And synthesizing is actually looking at sources of many different sources and figuring out what they have in common. And this helps you to focus, paraphrasing in general helps you to focus on what's significant and to compare and contrast the research. And that's directly from the APA manual. So like I said, summarizing gives that brief statement of the main points of a larger work, whereas synthesizing combines many ideas into a coherent whole. And this is really the main skill we're going to talk about now, and is the really essential skill for writing a literature review. I like this revision to Bloom's taxonomy, and I liked this particular model well. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, where this is kind of the difficulty in learning. How do we get to those higher levels of learning so that we truly internalize what we're experiencing? And so we first remember, understand, apply, analyze, and it's really when you're at these create and evaluate stages where it's difficult. And so this is not an easy assignment because you are actually combining parts to make a new whole, and you're judging the value of information or ideas. So I just want to acknowledge that this is higher level thinking and analysis, and it can be quite challenging. So just remember that when you are working through all of that research to try to put it into writing, it's helping you to analyze critically and develop your critical thinking skills even more. So the purpose of a literature review is to inform the reader about current trends or themes in the research or the literature. And it's also to point out gaps in the research. So this is often important when you're writing a new research study or your dissertation, because it's kind of part of your rationale for why you would even do this study. What is missing in what's already in the research, and how will your study fill that gap? And it's usually organized, the narrative type uses themes that emerge from the literature to present the information. So that's kind of the basics of what a literature review is and what synthesis is. And so here's a little bit more that synthesis reports information from a variety of sources, makes sense of the sources and helps the reader understand them in greater depth, and reveals to the reader where the information from the sources overlap. So usually in the early stages of your research, this is what it might look like. So I have a cat picture here because I like cats. But what I'm trying to show here is each one of these cats is a different researcher. And they're like looking at you and you're trying to figure out what they're saying. And each one represents a research study. So if we think we're going to actually take all of these researchers' ideas and combine them in a new way, this is how it looks at the beginning. It's kind of just a scattering of all these sources. And often when you're writing a lit review, one of the first stages of the, that ultimate goal is to write an annotated bibliography. And in an annotated bibliography, you go one by one, summarizing the sources. So with our cats, it might look like this. We have study A, study B, and study C. So we're only focused in that one part of the paper on the one study. And one of the challenges is that sometimes students will take their annotated bibliography and use it as their literature review. But that's really not going that step further of synthesizing the research. So instead of presenting the information piece by piece, this is more of the goal. So here now I have theme A, and all of these researchers agree or they have the theme in common, and then there's common features and maybe contrasting features with their studies. And then I have maybe theme B, so this is different researchers, but I wanted to point out that this one is actually in both. So it's possible that you might have themes that appear with the same researcher appearing in more than one theme. And often that may be the case. So I just wanted to point that out. It could be that it works that way. And then you'll go on with more themes. When you're writing a broader and more thorough literature review, you might have 4 or more themes. Whereas with a smaller one, like the mini literature review you write for the capstone in the MAED program, you'll just do probably 3 themes. So now let's talk a little bit about how to find those themes. And so remember, we have all our researchers. And if I were to just create a list of the research, it might look like this. So here I just have bullet points. My topic is the benefits of gratitude interventions. And each of these bullet points represents a different study. So we've got, just different aspects of the benefits of gratitude interventions. So for example, the first one says gratefulness is an important positive emotion that contributes to subjective well-being through increased social connectedness. This one refers to lower levels of depressive and physical symptoms when experiencing stress. Another one down here is also about being a protective factor against anxiety and depression. So then if we look, so that would be my first step, when I've gathered literature, is just looking at the findings with, very simple statement of the findings. And then for me, what has worked is adding color coding to find if there are any studies that have any similarities. And in this case, I put the yellow ones all relate to subjective well-being. So to having more subjective well-being, having a greater sense of well-being. So each of these 3 studies would relate to that. And then you can see there are 3 where anxiety and depression are correlated with gratitude interventions, that maybe the gratitude is a factor in protecting against or mitigating depressive symptoms. And then there are some, in the green, we have some social benefits. So to me, this would be a first step. And then you go to the next step, which is identifying those themes. And then you put here, I think it's just helpful for me, I just put the researchers in-text citations right after. So then the first theme is about improving life satisfaction and subjective well-being. The second one is about possibly strengthening relationships. And the third one is about mitigating depressive symptoms. So then you can see that each of these studies support that theme in some way. And it doesn't mean that the researchers are all exactly alike. It just means they had similar findings. And then within the sections, you can compare and contrast them. So how this would then turn into a literature review is you would begin your literature review with an introduction, along with a preview of the themes to be discussed. And then you would present the themes in the order that seems the most logical. So we would have, in this case, I just wrote 3, and these would synthesize the studies related to that sub-theme. And then you would have a summary at the end. So that's a typical, very simple literature review. Sometimes there are also theoretical frameworks added with dissertations, but this is just a little bit of a simpler view. And then if we look at that introduction, one thing that I think is extremely helpful is an overview statement. So this is maybe somewhere in the introduction, a single sentence that encapsulates all of the ideas in the paper. So it gives the topic and this roadmap or preview of the breakdown of the paper. So for example, if I go back to my topic, I could say the effects of gratitude interventions include, so here I've got my overall topic, and then I have my themes appearing at the end of the sentence: improved life satisfaction, strengthen social relationships, and decrease depressive symptoms. And so then that would be translated into my literature review, having big sections. These 3 big sections appear in the text. So the benefit of the overview statement is that it gives your reader a clear guide as to what's coming. And if you can work to create that, it also helps you focus your ideas. And yesterday I read this great quote. It says, writing is thinking externalized. And it's through writing that we come to understand our ideas with more precision and with more clear understanding. So when we write, we utilize our skills in order to really figure out what we're trying to say. And so this would be a way to really get started with an overview statement to try to identify what those themes are. And that doesn't mean you won't change it. It might mean this is just a start. And then as you get into the themes, you realize, oh, well, this study I thought talked about this, but it seems more focused on this. I have to move that to this section. You know, that kind of thing is understood as part of the process. But this would give you that basic structure to get started. And then, so we talk about synthesis. I like to think of it in like increasing rings of how levels. So we start with synthesis as a whole. And when we have synthesis where it is breaking down big sections, that's kind of the overarching synthesis. Then we have the next layer, which would be within those sections. Are there any sub-themes within the 3 sections or 4 sections where you could synthesize even further? And then the next level would be even within a paragraph and on the sentence level. So here are some tips, and we'll look at some examples in a bit. But this is how I wanted to just share how you can synthesize within a section or paragraph. With each paragraph, you can use the meal plan. And this is just a strategy, which is an acronym, the MEAL, to help you develop paragraphs. I'll tell you more about that in the next slide. And then in the middle of the paragraph, that's where you're really synthesizing the research on a single topic. You want to make sure it's all focused on one idea in a paragraph. And then you can try to incorporate sentences with multiple citations, and I'll show you what those look like. And then I also highly recommend transition words or phrases to help the reader understand how the research studies relate to each other. So here's a little bit more about the meal plan. And you may have heard me or someone else talk about this in the past, but it's just such an easy strategy to use. This was from, I think it was Duke University's Writing Center came up with this. So the M starts with the main idea. So when you're writing a paragraph, it's possible your first sentence might be a paraphrase or include paraphrased information, but it could just be that broader main idea topic sentence. And then within the middle of the paragraph is where you would add your evidence and your analysis. So with evidence, this would be your paraphrasing, really addressing the claim that the paragraph makes in the first sentence. And then the analysis explains or further describes the evidence, interpreting it for the reader. And so in a literature review, often this looks like how you would compare one study to another. So you might have a single sentence where you can include multiple researchers in that sentence. They have something in common. But then the next sentence might be something like, however, there are other ideas presented in the research as well. Well, that's a little piece of analysis that helps prepare your reader to know, oh, this is probably going to be contrasting information. So using those transition terms, furthermore, additionally, or phrases can be really helpful to guide your reader along. And then usually at the end, there might be a link back to a larger claim. So it gives you another brief look at that main idea. When you're writing within a section, you don't have to have a concluding sentence for every paragraph, but definitely at the end of the section, that's your place to summarize and really drive your points home. So here is a sample, but before we get to those, I just want to see if there are any questions at this point. Nothing right now? Okay, I'll keep going, but feel free to ask something or when I finish with this section.
Sorry, Julie, really quickly, would you mind showing the slide prior to the last acronym slide?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This one?
No, sorry, the one before that.
Okay, yeah. So these are just some tips for synthesizing within that paragraph, using the meal plan, synthesizing the research in the body, using multiple citations where possible, and including transition words.
And when you mean transition words, you mean things like similarly or in contrast. Okay.
Yeah, and even phrases like the Reed 2020 study is slightly different from this other study in that it focuses on this element, something like that. So as you are, what I mean by transition words is showing those relationships between ideas. And it can be as simple as in contrast or furthermore. But you can also write a phrase that helps the reader understand the context. Anything else on that slide? Okay. Feel free to ask. I'm going too fast. So I have a sample paragraph here, and I wonder, would somebody be willing to read this out loud for us?
Teen pregnancy is experienced differently across ethnic and racial groups. Specifically, Latina and Black adolescents experience disproportionate rates of teen pregnancy compared to their white counterparts. Dowden et al., 2018, Rabia, 2017, Saucier et al., 2022. In fact, Latinas experience teen pregnancies twice as often as white adolescents. Higher rates are consistent with other research which focused on African American teens as well. These ethnic disparities could reveal potential prior disadvantages or cultural expectations and norms that can factor into the phenomenon. The only exception to this statistic is with the Northern Plains Indian tribes experiencing the highest teen birth rate of any other group. Because of these disparities among ethnic groups, it is important to further study how to best support adolescents experiencing teen pregnancy.
Thank you so much, Eric. Okay, so let's kind of break this paragraph down a little bit. We talked about the meal plan. What do you see in this paragraph that either matches or doesn't match with the meal plan? You can unmute yourself or type it in the chat. So we're looking for that main idea, the research or evidence and analysis in the middle, and perhaps a concluding statement.
I'll go ahead and start.
Thank
So
you.
I think that, the minor claim of teen pregnancy is experienced differently across ethnic and racial groups does set up the paragraph for the main idea. And then we have like the specific evidence that is cited from the studies. So again, kind of setting up that argument of what does the research show. And then in terms of analysis, I think that there's a little bit of like sort of, I wouldn't say conjecture, but just kind of like exploring that possibility of the disparities revealing potential prior disadvantages. And then I think that there is kind of alluding to a link talking about the exception. Or at least just acknowledging that not all of the evidence fits into it. And then I'm not sure how it would transition, like where it would go from here to like a next paragraph. Just initial thoughts.
That's awesome, Adrienne. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any thoughts about this paragraph? So I'm asking you to analyze actually quite a few things at once. And Adrienne, I think you did that very well. So if we were to perhaps add some, oh, I don't think I have that in. See how this paragraph is framed. We see this opening sentence, teen pregnancies experienced differently. Okay, so this is fairly broad. It could still be cited, but because there is such specific support in the following sentences, I think it's okay to begin this one without a citation. since it's quite broad. And it's using language that's fairly neutral. And then at the end, this was kind of oh, let me see. More, this is so good. Oh, thanks, Kat. Yeah, more analysis is needed. I think this could probably be like 5 paragraphs. But it's a start anyway, right? So yeah, we have here in the middle bin several different studies. Let's see if we can count. Let me go back to the previous slide. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different studies cited in this paragraph. And I don't know if you have a rule of thumb you go by, but I think if you can have 3 to 4 different researchers within a single paragraph, that's probably a very well synthesized paragraph. And what would be kind of a red flag that maybe synthesis isn't happening is if there's only one source included in a paragraph. That's where it might look a little bit more like the annotated bibliography I mentioned earlier. And so we have the beginning sentence being quite broad, and then the last sentence is a little bit of analysis, kind of a so what answer. You know, there's this question, so what? How do we answer that? Well, it might be important to further study how to support adolescents. And so that's kind of the framing that's provided here. And then within that, we have several sentences that show these differences among groups. And let me just show you this slide, and then we'll talk a little bit more about analysis. So here we have 2 multiple citations. What do you think? So this is what we use in APA formatting. We list the researchers one by one, actually in alphabetical order by the source. So you can see the D, R, S, so it's all in alphabetical order. What do you think what does this acknowledge here? When we have a multiple citation, what is that showing?
Well, I think that going back to your cat analogy, it's showing that we have multiple researchers who are fitting into that theme with evidence, with whatever they've written, kind of all corroborating that particular evidence point.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and thank you, Teresa. Also said the sources are saying the same thing. And then that they all share the same theme, giving everyone credit. Excellent. Yeah. So you understand how this works. And so you have to be careful a little bit with that multiple citations to make sure that they all agree, they have this in common. But then you can pull out those outliers or those with a little bit different information, like here, the Dowden is focused only on African American teens, and the Peterson is only focused on the Northern Plain Indian tribe population. So that's what we have in terms of the synthesis. So this is well synthesized within a single paragraph. And then if we look back a tad, one thing I wanted to notice is a couple of terms, a couple of ways that analysis or transition is shown. So first of all, we have short, like just key terms specifically. Okay, well, that tells the reader we're still talking about the same thing, but now we're going to be even more specific. In fact, so that kind of tells the reader, well, now I've talked about these rates, and now here I'm going to go even to a more surprising statistic. And then this is something I really love, is using the words this or these to describe, to refer back to a term in a paragraph. So here we have these ethnic disparities. So you're restating for the reader what you've already talked about. And I've heard of it talked about like a chain, like you're creating a chain of ideas. And each of these links helps the reader understand this is a coherent piece of synthesized literature. So I love that. If you can use these and then a key term or this, that helps to give the reader that flow or that understanding. And then maybe this analysis slash transition here, the only exception to this is it's a little bit more of like, okay, you can see how this is kind of a story. To me, in the traditional sense of a narrative, it's very different. But if you think about you're telling the story of what you're finding in the research, this is what is referred to, where you're trying to explain to the reader how all of these studies fit together. So this is one example. We'll see if we have more time later to look at more, but this is just a way to think of synthesis on that smaller level within a paragraph and a sentence. So I'd like to shift a little bit now. Regina, would you like to share your screen or shall I just keep going?
Sorry, probably be better if I take over so that I can show examples of what I'm talking about.
No problem. So we're gonna shift over to Regina now, who will talk about organizing research.
Okay, so talking about, I hope that I'm doing this right. No, I think it's the wrong one. I hope that this is the right screen. Okay. Is this the window thing, or everybody can see what I'm on my slide?
Yeah, you're on your slide.
Okay, good. Okay, so really quickly talking about talking about synthesizing research. This is one of the reasons that I'm here. I wanted to show you how easy this is to use one of the tools that is already available to you, and it's already been improved. If you have been using the Lean Library extension to help you with your research, that's great. Or if you've been using SciWheel already, fabulous. But those two have been married into one, and it's going to have even higher functionality that's going to help you organize your research, and I think really help you with this whole synthesizing stuff. So I'm going to just I'll share this information. I mean, you've got the link in the slides, but if you go to this website here, if you have an account, it will prompt you to log in with your credentials, and then you can see your workspace. If you haven't had a chance to create an account, then you're going to need to create one with Concordia University. So make sure that you select Concordia University from the pull-down menu. But then when you are this tool, here we go. Let's get this going. It's not going to let me do this, is it?
I think if you go over to the top right, you can click slideshow.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, presenter view. Yeah, so there we go. So you're going to be able to use the new Lean Library workspace to help you with searching. So while you are searching, it can be on any platform, Google Scholar, PubMed, or within some of the library's resources, right? You're going to be able to, while you are searching and you see an article that you really like, you can right there using this little globe thing here. If you click on that, it will tell you from this page, which articles do you want to add to your workspace? So you don't have to lose track, right? You'll notice that even though this one is a Concordia resource because it says CUI, and this one has nothing, meaning it's not available to us. We have to actually probably do a library loan, an interlibrary loan. and then this one here is available as a PDF. Those are going to appear even though I don't have 100% access to all of them. If I click and I add them into my Lean Library Workspace, they're going to appear in my account here in Lean Library Workspace. And then I can add tags, color code them, whatever I need to do to organize them. I can even annotate them, and I can even share this if I'm working with a group, these resources here. So we don't have enough time for me to go into everything that the Lean Library Workspace does, but I did want to kind of show you really quickly the other thing that Lean Library Workspace can do is assist you with the writing. So this, for example, is just a screenshot of if I'm working in Microsoft Word, and I add the extension. In this case, they still call it side wheel. That'll be updated. I have my menu here, and I can be writing stuff. And then the Lean Library Workspace menu is going to appear in my document, and I can actually add resources live while I am working. So what does this mean? First of all, let me just show you that the dashboard in your account is going to look like this, right? So here's my Lean Library workspace. Let me get this out of the way here. And I've got my references, and I've got my different projects here. Here's my testing one that I was working on today. So these are some things that I've already grabbed. I want to make you aware that this is where you're going to build your resources so that they're going to have the abstract available, right? The actual links to everything. So I can click on this and I can be launched into the article where I got it from. All that is available within this one platform. So what does that look like? If I am searching in Google Scholar and I have my Lean Library Workspace going, first of all, I'm going to notice right away that I've got a simultaneous search here with JSTOR. And you can see what I'm seeing right now, can't you?
Yes, we can.
But then also I've got my articles here. If I click my little globe, and wait a second here, it'll load. It's supposed to load. And it's going to list all of the things that I'm seeing here so I can select them. Now I might have to reload this whole page, huh? Hang on, it's reloading. Go machine. There we go. So you'll see here that I've got tagged already. It's telling me you've already added these to your workspace, which is great. If I go to the next page, and you'll see this number has changed, and I can load this again. So I can instantly select what I'm interested in, even if it's not entirely available. So this teacher education's conception here, right? This is a PDF. And then this teaching and learning, which is down further down. Anyway, I can add those even if the content isn't fully in the Lean Library Workspace. So if I add those here, and I can select which group or which project I'm working on, they're safe in my Lean Library Workspace account now. So I can open my Lean Library Workspace account and I can view them here in my project, which is testing today. Here I am. So they're here, even though the whole thing isn't available right now. I still have the link and I still have the title, and I can add to this. I can copy and paste my abstract if I need to. I can upload the PDF if it's a PDF, and I can have it here, and then I can start taking notes right away. Okay, so that's one thing. And again, we're not going to have a lot of time to go over this, but this is just one way to kind of organize all of your stuff in an easy way. And you can color code it and add tags right here. So this is like the place where if you wanted to, you could add all of your resources in one place, organize them, sort them, annotate actually on the documents. The notes will appear here. And then when you are working on your document, so we see here, I've already enabled my my SCI wheel on my Word document. It does work on Google Docs as well. It didn't load for me today, so I sent it a help ticket. Mind you, this is brand new, so it's probably going to have a kink at the beginning. But let's say that I am, I'm writing something, I love, oh dear, my computer's not going to work. Love cats, right? I'm going to write something about cats.
Now we're seeing just the Lean Library workspace.
Oh dear. All right, let me go back. Sorry.
Okay.
I left you behind. Share. Let's go to my screen. This is where you're supposed to see it. Thank you for letting me know. So can everybody see what I'm seeing now? A Word document.
Yes, looks good.
Okay. So I wrote, I love cats. But then over here with my menu, with my what's called SCI wheel, even though it's the library workspace, I can insert citation, find my my notes. They even have a how-to guide here. So if I want to insert a citation, then it's going to say from which project, right? I can select my project. Did you have a tag for any of these? And, I might have, maybe. And then I can sort these. And then if I need to remember what was this about, the abstract, if I've built it correctly in my Lean Library workspace, it's going to appear here. And I can include the citation. So in this case, I didn't build it correctly, so it doesn't have a date. But it populates right here. And then also, let's say I'm done with my my paragraphs or my first section for my theme, right? For my first section. And I want to just kind of take a look at my my whole works cited. I can do that too by going here and formatting citations and bibliography. It will tell me what kind of formatting do I want, APA in this case. And then I can just go ahead and update my bibliography. And then it's going to actually insert the works cited that I have used already from the articles that I built in my Lean Library Workspace account. So there's a lot that this tool does. I'm going to stop sharing now. But hopefully it will help you with organizing your research and kind of giving you a way to collect stuff easily, because we don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We want to spend more time on actually reading and synthesizing and writing. So that's why I'm here. I'm trying to help you get over that hurdle. So make it as easy as possible to get the stuff in one place. And then you get to read and write and think and synthesize.
That's awesome. Thank you, Regina. So that would be like in place of Zotero or other resources like that?
Yes, it is. Zotero is one thing that you could consider using. Lean Library Workspace is the other. We are recommending not Mendeley and not Research Rabbit because they are mining data machines. But the advantage is this is free for you to use, and it is already associated with Concordia, and it's only going to get better. So that's why I'm kind of encouraging people, hey, if you want to try something to organize your research in one place, give it a whirl.
That's great. So I put the link in the chat, and then I will share. I shared the slideshow with everyone, so you can have the information that both of us have shared. And what if they have issues with getting this going? What should they do?
Yeah, so we could, if you, we could set up a really quick, like a 30-minute refresher on how to use Lean Library Workspace, and just do like a workshop together where we're all playing around with it and clicking and make sure that it works for what you need it to do. We could set up a time if anybody has a time that works best for them. I guess 4 o'clock on certain days, I could be here and we could just do a workshop on Lean Library Workspace.
That's a great idea. Do you mind if I share your email address in the
Oh, please
chat?
do. Please do. Yeah, anytime. And you don't have to wait for a workshop. You can always contact me and we can do a quick screen call, right? A virtual meeting.
So this is great. So please use the library resources. Regina is amazing and obviously has tons of tools and ideas that will really benefit you and make the whole process go easier. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps up our content. If you wouldn't mind filling out this exit ticket, I'll put it in there again. That would help us with our future programming. You might mention in the exit ticket if you're interested in having a sort of a workshop just on Lean Library. Feel free to mention that and we'll see what we can get set up.
Of course.
In the future, we're going to be having monthly workshops and we're trying to get everything organized. And so that we're working across departments. So with Regina and just presenting a lot of other information that might be helpful. But this time, Wednesday, the third Wednesday of the month at 4 is what we're going to use going forward. So if you wouldn't mind just filling out that exit ticket, then we can get to our, oh shoot, okay, maybe I messed up the link, hold on. Yeah, I think I messed up, hold on. Try that link, not the slideshow. Thank you for letting me know.
Now I need access.
Oh no. Sorry, guys.
Me too.
Okay, if you refresh your screen, let me know if it works now.
It works.
Thank you.